Hello, welcome to All Saints Church in Thornton Hough for another of our Organs of Wirral series. The village here dates back to the Domesday Book, but the church itself was built in the 1860s. A chap called Joseph Hurst had bought Thornton House a few years earlier as a country retreat. He was a wealthy mill owner from Huddersfield, and he wanted to give something back to the community. So he paid for the church, the original vicarage and the school to be built, and started a small model village. Some years later, the other great philanthropist, William Lever, bought the estate and continued the expansion of the village, much like he did in Port Sunlight. This wonderful organ was made in 1912 by the firm of Norman & Beard Limited. The company was founded by Ernest and Herbert Norman in the 1870s in Norwich, and in the 1880s George Beard joined the firm. They were a highly respected company, making organs all over the world. And by 1908, they had over 300 craftsmen, and they were making 70 organs a year, which is a phenomenal number. A lot of them were exported to Australia. In fact, some of the largest organs at the time were sent to Australia. They specialised in tubular exhaust pneumatic key actions and were world leaders in this field. And when Robert Hope Jones went to America to work with Wurlitzer and revolutionised cinema organs, Norman & Beard took on a lot of his staff and a lot of his patents, so growing the company even further. The tubular bit of this action simply means that there are lots of little tubes running through the organ that this air can travel along. They're usually made out of lead, and they take the air from one type of action to another. And if we lift up the music desk here in All Saints, we can see some of the wonderful lead tubing. All pipe organs rely on wind to make them work. And this wind needs to be sealed, and we use very fine leather. But pneumatic action organs have hundreds and hundreds of little organ motors. And there are two types of pneumatic action. There's charge action and there's exhaust action. And these little motors, if they are closed when they are at rest, when they work, they open, they get charged with air. Air gets pushed into them. But conversely, if they're normally open, when they're at rest doing nothing, so there's air in them already, when you play a note on the keyboard, then these little motors collapse and they are exhausted. Norman & Beard were world leaders in this exhaust type of action. They refined the action and they developed it, and they made their name doing this sort of thing. Organ motors come in all shapes and sizes. We have some little square drop motors, which just move vertically. We have some little round pillbox motors. And this particular one, the leather is so thin that you can see where it's perforated, where it's rotten given way. That's why we have to re-leather these things. We have some Roosevelt motors, which are hinged. They all operate in the same way. They are covered in very fine leather to seal the air in. And when the motor moves, it works a valve and lets air into something else. It moves. It's a relay system using a small charge of air to work a larger, bigger volume of air. piece I've just played was The Lost Chord by Sir Arthur Sullivan. Sullivan was an English composer, probably best known for his collaborations with W.S. Gilbert writing operettas, little comic operas. But Sullivan was a serious composer in his own right. He wrote lots of symphonies, large-scale choral works, 2 ballets, and of course the hymn, Onward Christian Soldiers. The Lost Chord is a song. It was written in 1877, so a few years before this organ was made, but still very typical of the type of music that would have been played on it. The text is a poem by Adelaide Proctor, a very famous poet of her day. The song was instantly successful and was sung by all sorts of performers of the day, from Clara Butt to Caruso. Some might say it really struck a chord with people, but that would be a pun too far, even for me.